And a week after that, Rock, as the Intercontinental Champion, would take on Triple H, who at the time was the European Champion. And they go to a DQ, and this really starts the DX Nation feud officially. And in the process, it sort of turns DX face. The crowd had really mostly been booing before this, but they had started to turn because DX was doing sort of cool heel stuff. And here, when they're feuding with the Nation, who are clearly heels, DX sort of become the baby faces. What made sense about a DX Nation feud?
They were absolutely opposites. So you had DX, it was anti-authority and anti-everything, and then you had Nation, which was pretty much a solidified group that was all about structure. And to me, this grouping and this period is where both Triple H and, more importantly, Rock was great all before this, no doubt. But it was here that Rock came into his own, because they would go out and Russo would type up scripts for everybody to, back and forth. And like I said earlier, Rock was one that Rock was a professional, and Rock would go out and he would pretty much stick to the script. Well, Hunter would go out and they're live, and Hunter would go off script. Rock would try and bring it back, to what was written. And Rock would come back and he would be all pissed off, and he would yell and scream at me and go, hey, I'm out there, I'm doing my job, I'm doing what's written down on the paper, and this guy's out there going into business for himself. And I would say to Rock, I said, yeah, and right now he's downstairs and Vince is chewing his ass out. If you can take the ass chewing, we're live. What are they going to do? If you can hang and you want to make a comeback, then make your comeback. We're live. What are they going to do? And the next time we were live and they went out to cut a promo and Triple H went off script, Rock went off script. And they went back and forth, and there was genuine animosity between the two. And neither one knew what the other one was going to say. And they're going back and forth trying to one-up one another for real, and the audience felt that. And that is what made that rivalry so damn good, because it was true and it was real.
And they're off to a start the next week. It's June 1st. Owen, Rock, and D'Lo defeat Triple H, Billy Gunn, and Road Dogg in a 6-man elimination match. Ultimately, Triple H would pin Rock, but then he would be DQ'd. So Owen, Rock, and D'Lo wind up getting the win here. 2 weeks after that, The Rock would defeat Vader to retain the Intercontinental title. And a week after that, The Rock would defeat Triple H in a King of the Ring tournament match. As you may recall, in 1997, Triple H won the King of the Ring, but he's back here in the tournament in 98, and The Rock gets the victory. This takes us to King of the Ring 1998 in Pittsburgh, which we're going to be covering this coming June. In the semifinals on that show, Rock would pin Dan Severn. How did Rock like working with Severn? You talk about styles clash. That's about it, is it not?
Nobody liked working with Dan. Dan's a great guy, but Dan has his own way of working, and Dan's a shooter and an extra tough son of a gun, but he could be a little tough to work with sometimes, and Rock's a worker's worker.
He had his work cut out for him here, man, because in the finals that night, he loses to Shamrock. He makes Rock tap out again. So on this night, he wrestles 2 UFC Hall of Famers, Dan Severn and Ken Shamrock. And for the third straight pay-per-view, as the Intercontinental Champion, no less, The Rock is defeated by Ken Shamrock. I guess we should cover this. I think we've talked about it before, but DX would come out and impersonate the Nation. Triple H was the Croc. X-Pac was Miyazaki Henry. Billy Gunn was the Godfather, and Road Dogg was D'Lo. Pretty famous segment. Did DX practice this during the day? Was everything out there ad-libbed? How did this go down?
What happened first? Did the Nation go out with, or did DX go out first where they impersonated each other? It was DX first. DX did this impersonation first, I believe. And it was, it was making fun of the Nation, and it was the guy that stole the show, in my opinion, was Road Dogg doing D'Lo Brown. Because Road Dogg did the head bob, and he did the yeah, that's right. And
the brother was bacon.
Yeah. I smell what he's cooking. But I thought everybody, it was a great parody. I thought it was absolutely hilarious.
We've talked about it before, but I guess we should mention it here. Jason Sensation was here doing the Owen Hart impersonation, and I just recently...
That's where I was going. Thank you.
I just recently watched Wrestling with Shadows, and beforehand, I think, I might be wrong, but I think before Canadian Stampede, they have a clip of Jason Sensation as a fan with a megaphone, like leading the crowd in a chant, and this is a year later. He's in the ring doing an impression of Owen Hart. What did Owen think of the impression?
Loved it. I think it was Owen Hart that is the one that, it was either Owen or Carl DeMarco, but he did, Jason's best impression at the time was Owen Hart. He did Owen Hart to a T. He did a good Brett. Obviously he did all the Canadians pretty good because he was Canadian, but Jason's Sensation is, as far as his, mocking people and doing the impersonations, was spot on. And he loved the Hart Foundation, but it was, you think about it, Owen Hart, it's not like a really overt personality to do,
right? But
Jason did it to a point that it was positively hilarious. So that made it even that much better. But yeah, Jason was a fan that did these impersonations, and we said, "Hey, kid, come on."
How was Jason? This has to be like every wrestling fan's dream, right? To not only be acknowledged by the company, but to be invited into the back, and then to be given the opportunity to perform with some of these guys in a WWE ring. It feels like a life moment for Jason, right?
It was, because Jason always wanted to be a wrestler. Jason later on, as far as I know, I think he went on to actually wrestle in independence up in the Toronto area. But we used him for different things when we needed an impersonation, if you will. Jason did some different stuff for us, and he's a talented kid.
Of course, we should mention X-Pac's here in blackface. Not something that ages well. I know you've told us before, but X-Pac got some sort of weird permission from Mia Zark Henry here, and they even make a reference for him eating the doo-doo sandwich. This feels like the biggest rib of all. Who booked it? How was X-Pac with it? How was Mark Henry with it? Did anybody raise their hand and say, this is a bad idea?
No. Russo booked it, and I thought that everybody did a great job with it. I thought it was hilarious. It was simply a parody on the Nation. They took it over the top. It wasn't something that was meant to ever be taken seriously.
Sure.
And they went way, way over the top with it so that you could laugh at it in different times.
I'm sure we'll circle back to that conversation another time. Let's talk about the Triple H version of The Rock, the Croc. It feels like The Rock may have laughed at this, but also been sort of pissed about it. What do you remember?
I think he was laughing on the outside, trying to let everybody know that he's cool with it, but I think that there were some things that were ribbing on the square, if you will, probably a little too close to home. But you can't have thin skin. And it was a parody. That's what it was. And he got it at that. It actually, drew some money, and it got some interest in those guys. So they got to make a comeback. Thought it was good stuff.
It was good stuff. The next week, we see The Rock defeat X-Pac by DQ to retain the Intercontinental title. Then we're on to Fully Loaded, where The Rock and Triple H went to a draw in a best 2 of 3 falls Intercontinental title match. We've covered this in great detail on our Fully Loaded 98 show, available in the archives. Anything else we need to throw in that maybe we previously didn't discuss here?
God, I think we've covered it. And again, this is another one that a rivalry that you think is going to be, okay, we're doing it now. We'll get our fill of it, and we'll have a blow off later and move on to the next thing. It's a rivalry that lived on. And I think still to this day, people are talking about, will Rock come back, and will he work with Triple H? Will Triple H work again? And is that the match they're going to have at WrestleMania? I saw, this week, people speculating that.
August 17th, we get Degeneration X taking on the Nation, but they go to a no contest in a street fight. And the week after that, we get something interesting. It's August 24th. Chyna comes to the ring all by herself and calls out The Rock. And The Rock comes to the ring, and Rocky Sucks chants are everywhere. And then the Nation comes to the ring. The Rock shows Chyna on the Tron that DX is locked in the dressing room by a forklift, which is parked against the dressing room door, and The Rock starts dressing down Chyna. She goes at him, but the rest of the Nation restrain her. Rock goes in to kiss her, but then he stops, and he tells Mark Henry to know his damn role, pucker up, and kiss her. Suddenly, Shawn Michaels hits the ring with a chair and hits Mark Henry on the head with it. What do you remember about this angle with the forklift and a random return of Shawn Michaels here and a little bit of a tease with a Chyna love story that we would see a lot of later?
I actually watched this recently, and I thought that, wow, this is another one. Wouldn't play well in 2017 because they were really rough on Chyna and pulling her hair, and it just was not PC, if you will. And trying to, even watching it now, just, God, it made me feel really uncomfortable going back, thinking about some of the things that we did back in those days. But again, it was a different time, and you could always make the excuse, well, this is wrestling. It's professional wrestling. So you get away with it.
Well, it's also less than a year after this, she's the Intercontinental Champion.
Yeah, but at the same time, she's still a woman, and it was still, male and female, and it was physical, and it just doesn't age well, as you would say. So it was controversial at the time, and always nice to get surprises in and have Shawn come back, and it was just a way to tell a different story. We used that damn forklift in a door. That's how I got my face kicked in by Brock Lesnar. Same spot with the forklift in front of a door. But when you think of different things to do, how are you going to move a however many 1,000-pound forklift? So it's just a creative way to tie somebody up.
We'll talk about the Brock Lesnar destroying your face story another time.